dashboards, validate the data. AI is a great tool until it's not. I mean,
Yeah. My thinking is that as either a sales rep or as a manager, you want to spend your time managing the exceptions. The dials that you create as either a sales rep or a sales leader or business leader are going to be unique to the things that you need to see to make sure that you understand your business. Take your time to really understand and validate what it's given you. Because number one, if you don't understand it and you can't validate that it's accurate, then it's useless.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey everybody, welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I am Mark McGraw. I am here with Chris Blum, and we are going to talk data and navigating all kinds of data with respect to sales and sales management. Chris, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you guys having me today.
Yeah, indeed. I'm looking forward to the conversation in the sense that there's a lot that I don't know about the space that you're in, which is all about data. Why don't you start by sharing with us, sharing with me and your listeners about what you're doing in terms of helping leaders be able to see insight that they don't normally see?
Sure. So I spent 10 years prior to my actual sales role in manufacturing and manufacturing leadership. And then after that, for the last 21 years, I've been in industrial sales. So both as a sales rep, as a sales leader, and then that evolved more into being the business leader within the company. So I had the purchasing staff under me, accounting, as well as sales. So it kind of touched a lot of different facets of the business. And as I grew within that business, new tools became available. Of course, 21 years is, that's ancient history in the sales world, right? I mean, if, speed to market, if you miss 6 hours today, at least in distribution, you're going to lose an order. But looking back when I was a sales rep, I thought, boy, if some of these tools were available then, I would have been able to not only save myself a lot of headaches, I would have been able to grow my business more profitably, which is what our ownership is always after. And I would have been able to do it more, I don't want to say on my own, but I would have been able to answer a lot of questions of myself that I had to ask others for, whether that was looking at trends, whether that was looking at breakdowns on profitability, whatever it was. I was usually reliant on asking someone else for information. And then when I did so, I had to make sure that I was able to validate that. And so there are a lot of resources that get tied up that in today's world, you don't have to do that. So it's really been something I've been using for probably the last 5 years. And it really touches all aspects of all business, but primarily when you look at the world that sales reps live in and sales leaders, it is right in the wheelhouse for those folks.
And that's the ability to see data, to connect dots together.
Yeah.
I kind of laugh, Chris, when you're talking about, the history of sales and all the stuff that, and I'm not 16, just so you know.
No.
I know, shocking. But I laugh because earlier in my career, getting data was near impossible. I mean, there was data was scarce, and now it's the exact opposite problem where there's so much data, it's hard to be able to see the forest for the trees. And you've done a lot of work in being able to help leaders figure that out so that they know what they need to be looking at. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on to help both salespeople and sales managers be able to kind of see and visualize the data?
Sure. When I was in industrial sales, we had a great ERP system. It ran all aspects of the business, did sales orders, tracked inventory, and did all that. But I was relying on, when I would ask questions, I would have to get data from IT. And when they would script up that data, they would send it to me, and I'd look at it, and I'm like, this isn't right. Well, and they'd be like, well, yeah, it is. It did exactly it's right. And I'm like, no, it looks like it's taking January, and then for February sales, it's adding January, and for March sales, it's adding January and February. I'm like, it's not right. And they're like, oh, well, let me look at it. So there was a lot of data validation that, oftentimes IT folks or even data analytics folks that aren't really engaged in the business don't understand what passes the smell test. And it's very important, and we'll talk about AI in a little bit because it's kind of on the same aspect of that. But I knew early on I had to be able to validate data. And I'm not a data guru. I'm an engineer by education, and that turned into a sales career. So when it comes to data, I'm not, I was never the data guy. But once these tools came online, I was able to take a business intelligence tool, and there's several of them out there. I used Tableau. It's a Salesforce tool, and it was very intuitive. And I was able to, again, without being an IT person, I was able to use Tableau and actually point to different data sources, whether it was within our ERP system, whether it was within our CRM, or we even had like industrial vending machines that carried consigned inventory out in the field. I could even point to that data. So I was able to, in real time, connect to different data tables and pull information in that was important to me. Who's the customer? What's the product? Who's the vendor? What's the cost? What's the price? Basically, the whole gamut of any information you would need. And I could very easily build visualizations to that. Mm-hmm. And once I did that, the ability to dynamically see the relationships between that data, that's where the rubber meets the road. You know, every other part of my life prior to that, I would get a sales report that was most of the time a week old. I would get commission report that was most of the time a month old. And I would pour over that information, and I would try to look at what those relationships were, even though they were already obsolete and outdated. But I would try to figure out, well, why is my margin low? Or why did I increase my sales on 3M product this month? Once you start building visualizations, you pull in the data that's important, and you can build these dashboards with cool little graphs and charts, and click on one thing and you can see the impact. You can see things change. So when I started doing this, I would, on many occasions, I would call our controller the day a booking report came out, and I'd say, hey, you might want to look at sales order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like the incorrect cost was used, and it's going to populate an incorrect margin. He'd be like, how'd you find that? And I'm like, it's easy. I had a picture of it. You know, I clicked on it, and that showed up in red, and red means bad. And I dove into it, and that's the problem. And, you know, there was really no impact on something like that. It would have gotten fixed. But the idea is that I was able to make a slight correction to what we were doing to potentially, you know, kind of, you know, create an issue that would have down the road caused a lot of problems. So,
and you do that because you're able to see things. So, and we're of course on an audio,
right?
And some folks are watching online, so we're going to include some visuals that you have as examples. But walk us through the visuals in terms of what is something, if I'm a sales leader and I want to be able to visualize what's going on, how do I best be able to do that so I can make sense of the world? Because frankly, I think that, you know, we joked earlier that at one point there was not enough information. Today, there's too much information.
That's correct.
How does somebody make sense of it all?
Yeah, and that's a challenge sometimes, but I always try to pare it down to the least common denominator, you know, for sales teams. Start with the revenue, start with the orders, what's driving the top end. A lot of times you can create a very simple chart that is nothing more than either a day, a week, or a month and what those total sales are. Then you can have another chart next to that that may drive things by customer, or by geography, or could be by, you know, the vendor. You know, what are you selling? Whose products are you selling? And when you start to peel the onion away, and by peeling the onion away, I mean, you click on one thing and it's going to come up and show you information that you need. I always say the information you need is based on the questions you ask. You know, what's important? Well, if I click on my overall sales, I want to see profitability in descent, or, you know, probably in ascending order. I want to see those low profit items first. What are the items that either may have issues with them, or what are the items that I need to look at in order to increase the profitability on those?
So, Chris, you would focus on the problem, you would focus on the issues when you look at the data and sort the data rather than the largest amounts.
Yes.
Is that your thinking there?
Yeah. My thinking is that as either a sales rep or as a manager, you want to spend your time managing the exceptions. You know,
Okay.
you don't want to manage the day-to-day normalities. So you want to find the exceptions and you want to manage those. And typically, not all the time, but typically there's a root cause for those exceptions. And once you can dive into that and find out what those are, you can correct the problem and go on to the next one.
So would you recommend to somebody, because I haven't thought about this way before, usually when you look at like just something basic, like even the sales team's performance, you're looking at performance against quota, you're starting with the folks that are the most off, not the folks that are above plan. Is that the thinking?
That is the thinking. I developed and I got this from a mentor of mine, but I always called it the power of 1%. And we always focused on the margin, the 1% margin, not the top end. And if we could improve overall everybody's margin on every line of every order by 1%, the impact on that is exponential. I mean,
it's huge.
It's unreal. And so what I started doing is looking at those exceptions where the drivers are low. We as salespeople, like I said earlier, you get a commission report, and typically your eyes go to the bottom of it. What I make, right? What's my check going to be? It's either not going to meet what you expected, or it's going to be where you expected, or it's going to exceed what you expected. And 80% of the sales folks at that point close a report. They got all the information they need, and they go on. But their margin may be good, their top end may be good, their check may be good. But had they looked at that, there would have been some corrections that they could have made somewhere that would have impacted not just that month, but future months to come. So, we talk about leading and lagging indicators, and the power of a tool like that is to really be able to take true data and create forecasting. So you can take leading indicators and really create forecasting for yourself to see where you need to focus. Almost create a sales plan without even trying. The lagging part of that is, well, what happened, right? What happened in the past? The data's been posted. What does that look like in prior months? And what needs to change to get me to where I need to be?
Chris, why don't you give some examples of leading and lagging indicators that you think sales leaders ought to be focused on? Walk us through some of that, would you?
Yeah. So some of the ones that we have, we sold in industrial sales. We sold to a lot of different market segments, and when you have data that breaks down your sales by market segments, a lot of times you can quickly see where those market segments are strong. Economic indicators can often be good leading indicators for you, and you can create some sales plans and some changes based on those market segments. So, that's just one example. There's a lot of folks, again, in the sales world that don't focus on that. They just know, all right, customer ABC is busy, and I'm going to keep trying to grow sales with him. Well, if he would manage his time based on what that forecasting or leading indicators might tell them, they would better be able to get a return on their time investment and what they're selling.
So you might be seeing, if you see something that's going on in the market as a leading indicator, that might drive the change of behavior, that this rep is going to spend more time in this segment because they're seeing a boom take place over there.
Yep, exactly. And they could quickly find that by isolating the data within those market segments and see if it's a fluke or see if it plays true across the board. So.
And that assumes, by the way, that you've got your data segmented for your customers well enough that you have industry categorization or product categorization that you can tie those things together.
Yep. You've got to have
see that as well.
Yeah. You've got to have that. And most, depending on what the size of the companies are and how what their ERP systems are capable of doing, most even low end ERPs have the ability to do that. If the ownership takes the time to really make sure that information is getting loaded and getting loaded correctly, it can tell you a lot of things.
Sometimes I think too, leading indicators. I mean, I love the fact that you're bringing up the economics of things because that's something I actually wasn't thinking about so much. But that would give you great indication for where now you take the next leading indicators for, let's say, a sales rep is what their prospecting activities are, how much time they're spending, what market segments are they in. Those are all, to me, I think of those as also as leading indicators, how many sales calls that they've made, presentations given, quotes, proposals, all leading indicators that predate, if you will, the lagging indicators of things over like sales and the results over there.
Right.
So
Right.
another layer on that. Anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of CRMs now have some really good, I call it granularity in the data. Whether it's building the sales pipeline, the sales funnel, the calls, the projects, all the things within the customer that will drive, that future sales. We would always look at our booking analysis, because to us, what's booked today is going to bill tomorrow, even though that's not really how it works. But it's kind of a pseudo. It's a pipeline between a pipeline and actually the sale, and we would use that data a lot.
I like that, a pipeline within the pipeline.
It's a pipeline within the pipeline, and a lot of time, again, in most cases, that stuff is going to bill, but what hits our bookings may also be larger orders, blanket type orders that may bill out over the period of a year. Okay, so you can take that data and use that also to look forward, right, as part of what you're forecasting and looking at, because those sales are more than likely going to hit, and you'll be able to predict when they're going to hit. So, but again, the amount of data, especially on the CRMs and the sales pipelines and all that, it's become unreal compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, and again, it seems to me like it almost becomes too much at some point. I mean, I know you're a believer of dashboards and dials, and am I wrong? I think, were you a pilot? Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm a private pilot, and part of my manufacturing experience is I was over the manufacturing industrial engineers at Piper Aircraft, and when I came on board, the very tragic accident of John F. Kennedy, if everybody remembers that, when he crashed up near Martha's Vineyard. And as I learned to be a pilot, which was several years before that, there are 6 gauges that really you focus on and learn as a pilot that are literally in your dashboard right in front of you. And any one of those instruments really isn't very telling on its own. But in a quick glance, and by a quick glance, I mean in less than a second, a pilot learns to scan those and learn to be able to tell in that instant whether or not they're flying level and happy, or whether bad things are happening and you either need to make an adjustment or bad things are going to get worse. And in a lot of ways, business leaders, and sales reps do that. They fly by the seat of their pants. Unfortunately, in the Kennedy accident, he wasn't an instrument-trained pilot, so he believed what the seat of his pants were telling him and not what the instruments were telling him. And the inputs that he made were counterintuitive to what he needed to do to pull out of that. And since everybody knows what happened, I relate that to a lot of sales leaders that can make corrections to bad situations ahead of time in order to avoid what ultimately could be a catastrophic situation. You're not catastrophic as in losing your life, but catastrophic in terms of maybe losing a customer, losing a line, a vendor line, maybe
losing your job.
A very common situation relative to that we had in the industrial side is managing obsolescence. In our industry, about 30% of what we sold every year would be obsolete the following year, meaning that you had to, if there were new product replacing it, you had to stay ahead of that curve and implement that new product and sell that new product while you're obsoleting something else out. So if you don't know and have a good way to visualize where those sales are and quickly see, am I growing new product in and am I phasing old product out? It can become a nightmare. You can eat a lot of dead inventory. You can make a lot of customers mad because, they may have some relationship to this old product they don't want to let go of. So being able to see things like that, and all you're doing is just making tweaks and corrections, but it can avoid a lot of internal costs and cost you customers in the long run.
So Chris, I'm dying to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so help me think this through. If I'm a pilot and I'm flying a Piper, or I'm a pilot and I'm flying a Raptor, my guess is that the same 6 dials are while they might look technically very different, it's still the same attitude, level of the wings.
Yep.
I don't even know what the terms are, right?
Well,
by the way, do not let me fly. That's clear at this point. But they're the same 6 dials, I'm guessing, by and large. Is that true? First,
yeah, spot on.
And I'm thinking to myself, as a sales leader, that may not be the same for a sales leader. I mean, obviously, you're going to measure sales. That's going to be a dial that you're going to have, and there might be some others. But I'm trying to think: should every business have the same 6 dials?
No, absolutely not. The dials that you create as either a sales rep or sales leader or business leader are going to be unique to the things that you need to see to make sure that you understand your business. That may evolve. In fact, it will evolve over time. And you start out with those basics. What do I need to know? An owner may be looking at dashboards that include cash flow.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about some of those dials that someone might want to select from.
Yeah, we talked a few minutes ago just about revenue, right? What are the sales coming in? What are the factors that drive that to the bottom line? What's my cost? What inventory do I need? You may have graphs or charts on there that are very simple in form. They may just be a red, yellow, green, but your eye can get trained to that, and green is your eye can get trained to that, and red, there's a problem that you're going to be asking the questions about your business that you need to see. And like I said, business owners, we always looked at cash flow because that's the lifeblood of any business. You look at growth, and when you look at growth, you look at profitable growth. So you're looking at month over month. You're looking to see comparatively, what does my month over month sales look like? You look at the same product. What am I growing my sales strictly because that customer got busier? And am I going to ebb and flow as they go, I go? Am I adding new lines for that customer? Am I selling additional product? If so, how much? So, you may have a chart or a graph on that, and, you can click on that 1 month, and you can see, okay, I'm down from prior month, but I'm up in my new product sales. I'm growing new business. So maybe that customer just got slower than the month before, but I'm growing because I'm selling him something new. I'm adding to my arsenal that I'm selling. In other words, I'm taking market share from somebody else.
So on the sales management side, I might have, and this would be an all-encompassing list, but I might have sales, total revenue. I might have sales by salesperson. I might have cost of goods sold and gross profit, because you could see that change. And as a sales leader, you want to be cognizant of that. As an owner, obviously cash flow. Profitability would be another one. On the sales or the seller side, I could see things like year over year spend by customer.
Yes.
For certain situations. That would be a good one. Obviously, sales on that side too.
Yep.
I could see sales by territory potentially, or sales by product line would be other things.
Yep.
One thing that we measure in our business is what's the source? What's the lead source of the revenue? Did it come in from marketing? Did it come in from
that's a good one.
Cold calls? Did it come in from talks to groups and associations and the like?
Yep.
And so that's something that we measure as well. Not only, by the way, the number of sales that come in, but also the lead count as well.
Yep.
We found that, for example, for us, at least, referrals have a dramatically higher close rate than a cold marketing inbound, as an example.
Yeah.
So
nope, I think that's a great point. We did a lot of that as well, relative to, was it a website generated sale? Was it a national contract? Did somebody at corporate write a national contract that basically handed us an opportunity to grow that? Was it organic because of a salesman's efforts? So we kind of categorize those as well. And, whether the sales reps liked it or not, sometimes you had to create commission strategies. If it was an account that was handed to them, maybe there's other costs associated with that account that, hey, it's not a full commission account. There's other costs involved, but you're getting $1.5 million in business you didn't have a year ago that you didn't have to work for. So So yeah, a lot of different dynamics, but that's a great point. What drove that business? Why did you get it? Why do we have it?
And at the end of the day, you want that data not for the sake of the data, but you want the data for, okay, now what do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Can I double down on this particular marketing venture? Can I double down on this particular activity? Can I double down on this industry that you're seeing success in? And how can I do more of what's working? I think is a question that I ask myself a lot. And I think, all sellers and sales managers can be and should be and often are asking, how do I double down on my successes?
They do, yeah. And some of the neat tools, I know in particular Tableau has it, but you have the ability to tell a story. You can create your dashboards and make them interactive and do a lot of different things. But there's also functionality that does storytelling because, ultimately, just like you said, how can I double down on that? What has happened and what is happening that's going to help me make that decision. They're actually called storybooks. And so you actually create those to tell that story so that, once you read it, you can sit back and make some decisions that, are based on what you just read or what it just showed you in real time. So it's kind of cool.
That's funny because I think a lot of salespeople and sales managers, we're great at telling ourselves stories.
Oh yeah,
so that's perfect.
We sure are.
It flows very nicely.
Yep. Yeah. I was thinking before I came on, being in the infantry for 6 years, it's not really a skill set that translates into the civilian world. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've been in sales for the last 21 years. It almost certainly does translate into, we're doing battle every stinking day, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun. We like it. But as you get into more leadership, you realize that you take a humanities class in school, and it's like, why am I ever going to need psychology? And then, I'm like, I need psychology, I need counseling, I need, there's a whole lot of
Our
things.
founder said sales is a Broadway show performed by a psychiatrist. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It is in that.
For sure.
There's a lot of truth. Hey, we were talking too about AI. Anytime I think about data these days, I also have to think about AI and its impact and how we can use data and information, and that's a game changer over the last 36 months. What are you seeing on that front that sales leaders can go use or do to get more insight and connect more dots?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the capability grows, every day.
By the hour.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I was using data analytics and visualizations really as AI was just coming on board, but now AI can really help expedite kind of building a lot of that information. You can take a basic Excel spreadsheet now, and if it has some kind of table format, meaning you got columns of sales and time as you go down, you can go into Copilot and ask it, hey, show me make a graph of my monthly sales by product line, by profitability, show me this, this, and this. And it'll do a fairly decent job at doing it, which is a huge time saver. Back in the day, I'd create pivot tables that weren't interactive, that I'd have, to our points, stacks of data, trying to make sense of all this stuff and trying to figure out what I needed it to look like in order to make sense out of it. And AI can really help expedite that process. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to validate that data or the actual output of that. So, if you ask AI to do something, it's going to do it. And kind of to my example of when I would ask our IT to do something, they're going to do it. But if you can't validate it and make sure that what you asked it is what you really need done and that it's right, then if you use that and it's not, and you present that to leadership, or you use it to take action on your sales or a salesperson within your team, you could look like a fool if it's not right.
So one thing I think about, especially around like even delegation, is I think about a concept that was introduced to me. The concept is 10-80-10. And the way that this works is that you do 10% of the work as you lay out what the goal is and what you want to do. And then maybe you delegate the next 80% to someone else. They do a lot of the heavy lifting. And then on the back end, you've got another 10% over here that you're going to go look at the end to make sure that you validate the information so that you're really getting good stuff and that you approve it, and maybe you got to send it back for another revision or whatever. But I think the same thing can apply to AI. To get AI to do things with us is that we can take the first 10% and do the prompts, do all the stuff. Then the next 80% is AI doing the work, and it can do it in an instant. It's a lot of work, but it happens quickly. And then that last 10% is the part that we can fail to do, which is that last 10% is to check the data again with AI to make sure that its output really is accurate and we're not just taking its word for granted.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy because it, again, you as a sales rep or sales leader have to be able to determine what you need to see based on the questions you're trying to answer or the things that are important to you. At that point, you can use an AI tool. Tableau even has one that's integrated in it. And rather than writing formulas and doing things that take time, have AI do that. AI is great at that. It can crunch it out. That's a workload you don't have to do. And to your point, that could be 60 or 80% of it. But once you get that, take your time to really understand and validate what it's given you. Because if you don't, number one, if you don't understand it and you can't validate that it's accurate, then it's useless. You just spend a whole lot of time that is a tool that, is going to get you killed, right?
Yeah.
You're flying by the seat of your pants again, and that's not good. But yeah, AI is getting more and more powerful.
And it's really even more than useless, because useless would mean it doesn't do harm. I mean, I can see situations where, to your point, it can take you out because you're making decisions upon assumptions by trusting AI too much. And we're missing that last 10% of the validation to say, does this make sense? And how do I validate that information? I see that mistake happening right now.
Yeah, we had a situation, without naming names, but we had in my industrial sales life, we had a contract with a customer that put their pricing at basically it was a cost plus type of setup. And as the contract was written, the cost was actual invoice cost. Well, within our system, when we asked for cost, there's several different costs, right? We had a market value cost, which is not actual cost, maybe higher, maybe lower, and it varies. And the logic was written to pull that data in and use that as cost. And so once you start to audit that and look back, there were some checks that had to be written to make that right with the customer, all because the term cost was very ambiguous, and whether that was pulled through AI or whether that was a SQL script that somebody wrote, it was cost. It just wasn't right cost. So again, had that been validated on the front end in terms of what the output was, it would have saved everybody a whole lot of pain and effort later.
Yeah, it's. I think it certainly can happen, and it's certainly something to be careful of. So,
sure. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, great insight today. Let me take just a second. I'm just looking over my notes. Yeah. I'm looking at get your data to be visual for sure. Get the data to be drilled down. So you're just not, if you want more insight, you can double click into something.
Dynamic.
And I love it. Yep. And so make the data dynamic. I loved your 1% margin, the power of the 1% margin. And then also, this is cool, manage by exceptions. Take a look at, focus on the things that are over there. And you mentioned too, colors are really important as well. We didn't talk about this one. I've found very, very, very powerful concept, so simple, is all the data that I like to look at in my business is all on rolling 12s.
Okay.
I don't really like so much year to dates. I mean, it's all fine and well, but I'd rather look at the last 12 months.
Sure.
Because you always have the same reference point and you're not thinking, well, we're 6 months through the year.
Yep.
That's just me.
No, that's a very good point. Yep.
Dashboards, validate the data. AI is a great tool until it's not. I mean, that's a solid list of how do we think about data and how do we make sure that we maximize it, not to mention the leading lagging indicators we talked about as well.
And anybody can get into this. When I say that, I really mean it. It is not an expensive venture to get into. It's just is a little bit of a paradigm shift as salespeople that, we're used to reports and we're used to canned outputs from either our systems or our teams. And doing this is really, it's not $1 million venture. You can do it very competitively. And there's folks out there, not unlike myself, that can help folks get into it and hand it off, and you take it and run with it. And in short time, you step back and you're like, I can't live without that. I need it. So it's great.
It's so valuable to have the information, not just have it, but have it easily digestible and accurate.
That's it.
And those are things that you're specialists in for sure.
Yep.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you, Chris, how would they reach out to you? What would be the best way to connect with you if they were looking for help to be able to help their, small or mid-sized business be able to make sense of data and put it all together?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. The name of my company is Blum Company. It's EHBLUM Company. And my email address is ehblumcompany, one word, @gmail.com. So you can reach out to me that way or send me a note through LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to get back with you.
Awesome. Chris, full of great insight today.
No, I appreciate you having me. This was a lot of fun. I love being a data geek every now and then and sharing some good stories with people, especially that are in the sales world, because it's so easy to brush that off as not being applicable. But man, it is, like I said earlier, it is in the wheelhouse of sales if you can understand the data.
I think most CROs, most people at some senior level for sure are going to tell you that they spend a tremendous amount of time looking at data, and it's an integral part of what they do, and probably more and more. I mean, I know the CMOs of the world today are spending, it's the vast majority of their world is looking over and viewing data and seeing how things are changing.
Yeah, yep. And it changes, as we talked about, rapidly every minute. And in the sales world, I'm sure I know, and anybody else out there that is involved in sales, what is current today is going to be obsolete tomorrow, and maybe an hour, 6 hours, you could lose an order, and it's competitive. But we thrive in it, right? We love it.
It's the best game ever. I love the game of business. Yep, so this is how you keep score. Yeah. You use dashboards and visualize.
That's it. It's fun. Yep.
It's fun. Thanks again, Chris.
Right.
Enjoyed it so much.
Thank you, Mark.
And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.